Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Beckingham. I think I've been a member of Cambridge Art Association for 2, maybe 3 years. I'm not sure. And I've been painting for about that long. And this is my studio. It's actually a spare room. So this is the work desk over here. I work at home, so I spend a lot of time in this room. And here is the other half of the room, which is Easel. I have a glass palette here, which is a very nice thing to have, and I have a wall full of work in progress and recently completed stuff. So I'm going to show a couple of paintings. So I've been painting realism, and tends to be photorealistic at times. So there's one. This is a small still life. And this one. Here's another, which you've seen in Rebecca's image for this talk. This is another still life, obviously. Very still, the plant was dead. And this one is a work in progress. It's a landscape. It's something that I started for fun. There's no reference for this. I just made it up. Hope you can see that. And I wanted to talk about the panels I use, because the people tend to be interested in the panels a lot. This is 4mm thick. It's an aluminum panel. It's called aluminum composite material. It's 2 sheets of aluminum with a plastic core, and it's very strong. It's very light, and it's archival. So here it is. It's very hard to bend. It's a great material. It weighs nothing, and it's very cheap. It's cheaper than canvas. Something like $3 a square foot. So I take these and I get them from building supply merchants. This one comes from south of Boston somewhere. These are used in advertising. So when you see a storefront and you'll see the printed store name above the storefront, this is usually what it is. It's just a durable outdoor material. I take that and it gets painted. This one is it's originally a very shiny material, but when you paint it with a lead ground, in this case, it's got a nice texture to paint on, very much like gesso. And I paint directly on there. And there's some interesting aspects of the paint I use too. So I have pretty bad skin allergies to all the solvents used in oil painting, which causes all kinds of blisters and such. And so I've been using mostly paints like this one is a Geneva. This doesn't have toxic solvents, so I can use it indoors without an elaborate filtration or extraction system. I use walnut oil as a medium. It's not edible, but it's not far off, so it's not toxic. And there are paints you can get. This one is by a company called M. Graham. This is a paint with walnut oil again as the medium, and so these don't smell of anything other than walnut oil. And I don't need fans in the room to get rid of some of the vapors that I would get when I would use other things like turpentine or odorless mineral spirits or things like liquid. So those are not solvents that I can touch. So I use these, and all is well. And I like using those. So I've been doing a mixture of landscape work and still life. And for the still life, it's painted from life here. So I'm going to rotate that. there. So this is a potter's stand. I don't know why it's called that, but it's essentially just a wooden stool with a rotating top. On it is a box here, which is just foam core from the art supply store. I made a box, and it's just, you can sort of see it. It's just a dark box, and there is a light here. This is a photographer's continuous light, and I shine that onto the still life. And that foam core box with the still life is exactly what this is showing here. I can get rid of the reflections. It's just painted straight out of there onto the canvas. I have some shelving in the background. This has been a really beneficial thing for me, is to put the shelving up. It's an IKEA shelving. It's only about 4 inches deep, but there's probably 50 paintings up there. They're stacked like 3 deep. It's a great way to let them dry. It's a great way to see them. It's a great way to get them off the floor, although frankly I have a lot on the floor as well. And that's it for the room. So it's a small space, but I have the ability to do still life this is about 4 feet behind the easel, or behind the chair. So it's a good distance for doing still life. And I have a big old stack of these panels that I keep in the basement. I cut them myself to any size I want. You can do that with a power saw, or you can do it with a box cutter. You can score it, and if you score this with a knife, you can actually snap it, which makes it very easy. So this is just a piece I snapped off yesterday. It was the right size to hold up. So it's an easy material to use. It's very cheap, and you can adjust the surface. So right now this is unfinished. Can't find the reflection. It's like glass smooth, so you sand it. You put on a lead ground, which I did here. You put a couple of layers of that on, and then you end up with a really nice tooth, which holds the oil paint very well. And this is archival, which means that it doesn't weather. It doesn't expand and contract with the heat and the humidity, and as does a canvas or a wooden stretcher bars. And when it doesn't expand and contract, the paint surface, the paint film, doesn't get stretched to the point where it cracks. And ideally, this is a longer lasting surface than canvas. I prefer the way it feels too. So I wanted to point out the brushes a little bit, because this is some people like to get upset at the brushes I use. So this is for the detailed images. This is a rigger brush. It's a very small brush. I tend to use that for details. But when I want to do fine detail, I take one of those brushes and I cut all the hairs off it except for 3. So that's a 3-hair brush, which I use for the fine details. And I expect people to be horrified by that. And it does take a long time to paint as a result. Yeah. Are there any questions, Erin?
So it looks like Margaret Sheldon had a couple of questions. So I am going to unmute you, Margaret, and remove the spotlight. Go ahead.
Great. I feel like all I've been doing is typing questions. This is terrific. If only I can remember them all. The first thing I thought of was, are you using water miscible oil paints, or are those, do you use any solvent at all?
These are not water miscible. These are just straight oil paints. They happen to have a medium, which is in this case walnut oil, and in this case linseed oil and clove oil to keep it open longer. But all I do is I add the walnut oil medium to it. So no, it's not water miscible.
So when you clean your brushes, are you cleaning them with oil and then? I mean, that's what I do now. So I totally and zest it.
I have a confession. I don't clean the brushes.
Oh, that's all right.
They're never cleaned. They're always in a state where there's something on them. And if you paint often enough, this never dries. So it's not strictly necessary. So I just wipe it like this. That's it.
Yeah.
That'll be just fine tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
They don't get washed. Sometimes I make a mess and I do wash a brush, but I use a linseed soap.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a big jar of linseed soap on the shelf, and it comes off with soap.
That's great.
You just need to sort of swirl the brush around a bit, and they clean up nicely.
All right, I'm going to fire the rest of my questions off. How do you light your easel?
I love it.
And how do you light it?
How do I?
Light.
What's your light. I thought you said like. Oh.
I'm glad you like it.
Okay, so there is a lamp here. This is just an IKEA angle lamp that has an LED daylight bulb in it, 5,000 Kelvin bulb, which is white. It doesn't have any blue in it or yellow in it. So
yeah.
That sits here and it shines down onto the palette. I'm not sure if you can really see that.
I can.
It'll shine onto the palette and onto the work, and I can move it around accordingly. There's another here above.
Yes.
So there are two of these. I'm turning that one off because it creates reflections right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's those two lights.
Great.
And they illuminate this sort of work area and the palette. And there's a trick. The easel has a gap here.
Uh-huh.
So if I put a piece of cardboard in there, it blocks the still life from this lamp. So the still life remains in shade, if that makes sense. Sort of, you get the angle right and you can have light and dark in the same room.
All right, my very last question is, what did you do before you started to paint?
I would do a lot of software development.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
Well, not that cool. So I was doing that as a hobby, but I do that as a day job as well. So it was a bit much. I wanted to do something a little more relaxing, so I started painting. Great.
Very good.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm actually going to have Susan Alport ask her question because it is a little bit of a follow-up on what Margaret was just asking about. Susan, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, Paul. Thank you very much for bringing us in to look at your great stuff. Yeah, I didn't notice that Margaret had asked you that at the end of her question, what did you do before painting? But mine's a little different. I was curious to know, besides relaxing, what were some other motivations that maybe you could mention, or just things you were looking at that kind of made you decide to move into painting yourself?
Yeah, okay. I wanted something low stress. So that was the primary thing, is I wanted a low stress activity. Mm-hmm. I was doing the same thing all day and all evening with software, and it's too much. I wanted to change the pace, and I wanted something that didn't stress me. So I was able to just sit here and play music and paint, and it was a really pleasant experience. So that. I had also been watching a lot of online tutorials about painting. I've always sort of been interested in drawing. And I sort of got the bug from watching various people online, and thought I'd give it a shot.
Wow. You never did it when you were younger, or kind of?
Not painting, no. I drew as a kid, and I've taken a couple of classes over the years, but no, I'd never picked up oil paints.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought they would be messy and smelly, but they're not. I mean, they are messy, but it comes off.
Thank you. That's a great reason. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, muted myself. We had a couple people ask questions about subject matter. I'm gonna unmute Lorraine Sullivan first. Go ahead, Lorraine.
Can you?
Lorraine, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Let me close that. So he can see me?
No.
There.
No? Okay, I'm gonna, Adriana Pratt also had a question about subject matter, so go ahead.
Hi,
Adriana.
Well, hi, how are you, Paul? Beautiful work, amazing. And as an abstract painter, I'm like, oh, hats off to you. I wouldn't be able to do that. So it's only admiration that I feel for you. So I was wondering about your subject matters or your still lifes. Do you have any preference? Is there that you choose things that are connected to you personally, either because you like them or because they are, or do you have a preference of color, texture, or anything in particular, or it's just random?
It's not random. It's there is a theme there. So I've been taking painting coaching lessons, and I have a painting here. So part of the coaching is to teach me several things. One is to loosen up and not use those tiny brushes. Another is to speed up the painting, because completing a painting quickly is more satisfying. You get more pleasure out of it that way. And also it lets me create more paintings and get more practice. So I've been practicing on speeding up, loosening up somewhat. And as part of the coaching is I get given assignments. And I've got an example here. This is one of the assignments, which is take a couple of white eggs, put them on a white plate, and paint them.
Oh.
And try to make it, of interest. So pay attention to like the shadows and the light and reflections and such. So that was one of the coaching practice. That was number 2 of 20. And so what this did, it gave me a bit of an appreciation for some of the still lifes, that they can be somewhat interesting if you try. This one here with the plant, this is sort of a dead plant in the shadows, and so it's sort of a way for me to look at the light or the absence of light, and have a mix of organic and inorganic forms. And so the subjects are basically that. They're usually coaching assignments, and it goes from like a flower, eggs. I've done an assignment which is to take a big piece of aluminum foil and scrunch it up and paint that, and like just challenges really. And while doing that, the idea is also to speed up. So this was actually not a challenge. This is a 3-hour painting, so I'm learning to be faster about it. But having gone through the challenges, I'm now interested in still lifes, much like we see over here. I like painting flowers, but they only last a couple of days. But if you dry them out, this is 6 months old, and I just keep painting it. So I like painting dead flowers, which seems a little strange. I like arrangements in this light box here. So it's a combination of light and dead things.
Beautiful, beautiful. I can relate to the things and the flower. I like the flowers and they fry. So it's beautiful. No, I understand. So it's great. I love your thought process. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great. All right. We have a question from Tanya Hazley. I have unmuted you, Tanya. Go ahead.
Hi, Paul. Thank you for this presentation. I'm
Hi,
wondering,
Tanya.
what are some of the larger brushes that you use?
Well, I think I just showed you. They're
one?
not that big. They're not that big. I've got a. It's a dagger brush. It's not that big if you can see the size compared to me.
Right.
And that's about as big as they get.
Okay.
I tend not to paint very large, so this can cover it pretty quickly. I do have bigger brushes. I just don't use them. I should.
Or not. I mean, what you do is so beautiful. I think you should keep doing what you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we also had a question. I don't know who asked it and disappeared. Do you wear glasses when you work, Paul?
I should, because I don't see that well. And sometimes on the really detailed paintings, yes, I do. I wear a magnifying. I've got a magnifying glass. I had a prescription glasses made up that have. You can't tell, but these only work for like a foot in front of my face. So I had some really strong lenses put in there, and that lets me get in close if I need to. But I'm trying not to do that because that just encourages me to get really detailed, and that makes a painting take an awful long time. So.
Okay, we have a question from Rebecca McGee-Tuck. Rebecca?
Hi, I love getting in to see everybody's studios, and thank you for showing us yours.
Hi, Rebecca.
I had just a question. I see that you work from home and not in a studio with a bunch of other artists in it. So I wonder, how do you get feedback on your work, or do you not need feedback, or what kind of community do you have to like with your art?
Yeah, so the main feedback I get is from the coach, my painting coach. So once a week I have a phone call where I have already sent photographs of work in progress and completed stuff, and I get an earful of feedback about that. So the coach's job is to motivate me, and so I get positive and constructive and negative feedback about the things I do. So that's really good, and it's, you know, the coach is a professional painter, so it's quality feedback. But also you know, sharing it online with Instagram and Facebook sometimes, and I get some feedback there. But lately, none, because yeah, we're stuck. We're stuck.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Lorraine Sullivan raised her hand.
Yes, I did.
Great, there we go.
Hi, Lorraine.
Hi, Paul. I met you at Feedback Forum. And
Yes.
and loved your work and your sense of humor. And I see the humor in some of your pieces, like Who Would Paint a Dead Plant? You would.
Right.
Do you sell your work, and how do you feel about that? If they're very time consuming and they're like a feat that you complete, and how do you feel about selling them?
Oh, I love selling them.
Oh, good.
As you can see, there's too many here, and too many for the Cambridge Art Association holiday show, I'm afraid. So, Erin, if you could raise the limit to 30, I'd be very happy.
Okay.
I know I'm very happy when they disappear, because they pile up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, can you remind me of the first part of your question, please?
No, that was more a statement.
Oh, okay.
Met with you at Feedback Forum, and how much I appreciated your presentation there and your work. It's just beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it is I remember you saying it's an accomplishment to finish them. So yeah, I do like finishing them. Get great satisfaction from being done with it. Yeah, thank you.
Very nice.
Does anybody else have any questions for Paul? While you're thinking about that, and as a segue from Lorraine's question, bear with me for one moment while I share my screen with you. So if you're wondering where you can see more of Paul's artwork, you can follow him on Instagram at Paul Beckingham, or paul.beckingham, and online at paulbeckingham.com. Paul also has a show up at 13 Forest Gallery right now that no one has seen, correct?
That's right. Yeah, the show opened a few days after the state shut down. So there's a very well preserved show on the wall that you can't see. I haven't seen it yet either. That would be nice. But they're putting some stuff online, and they've actually sold pieces, so it's happening. But yeah, there are no visitors.
Actually, we did have a question for you, Paul. Which artists do you admire?
Well, lots of them. So I think there's a contemporary artist, Renato Mucillo. I really enjoy looking at his work. It looks like it's photoreal, but it is not when you get up close. I was lucky enough to see one in Los Angeles, and it was about a 3 feet square big painting, and as you walk up to it, it changes from being what looks like a photograph into essentially a mess, and it's beautiful. So I really like his work. It's a nature-themed landscape artist. I think he's up in Vancouver area, and some of the non-contemporary ones. Ivan Shishkin is a Russian painter from the 19th century who painted the trees and woods around Moscow, I believe, and they're beautiful. So I admire those guys. I can't really paint trees. That's my problem, or one of them. I'm working on it.
Great. And then just one last question. Do you ever use a camera Lucida? I have no idea what that is, so maybe you do.
I know what that is. No, I don't. I haven't used one. I haven't used a projector. I do cheat, and I use a proportional divider.
Yeah.
So I can make sure I get my dimensions when I hold it up to the source, and I can transfer it to the painting. So this helps you get accurate proportions, which is important. So I use that, but no, I don't use a camera Lucida. It's an interesting thing, though.
Now I know what that is. So before I put everybody into the Brady Bunch grid, one brief pitch for Cambridge Art Association. As you know, we've been closed since March 13th. We don't know right now when we're going to reopen. We hope soon, but depends on what the government says. But I hope you'll consider making a donation if you can to our annual fund. Literally any amount makes a difference. So the link is right there on your screen. It's also on all the registration pages. I'm actually gonna stop sharing screen for a moment and say that we'll be back here next Tuesday, May 5th. Hard to believe it's May already. With a studio visit with Crystal Brown. And right now we're actually scheduled for virtual studio visits until June. If you're somebody who's been attending and maybe you're thinking that this is something you want to participate in and have people come visit you virtually, you can sign up online. Yeah, thank you all for being here. I'm going to unmute everybody to say hi and thanks, and thank you, Paul, for sharing.
Thank you so much.
Today.
Thank you.
Your work is beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
is just great. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Paul.
everyone.
Thank you.
And the video, the recording will be up in a couple of days.
I would love to see a demo of your work. If you're working on your work. Demo.
Oh,
Oh, God, that would be terrific.
I have not done that. That sounds terrible.
I do have a question, Karen Watson.
Come on over and watch me. How about that?
When it gets good, I'd be happy to do that.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Erin, thanks for organizing that.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.